CBS News congressional correspondent Nikole Killion joins us now from Capitol Hill. So, Nikole, what happens next and how long will it take to restore funding?
Well, obviously, when these things happen, it can take a few days for everything to come back to full speed, if you will. And at the end of the day, it kind of depends on where the pay periods hit for various workers. But ultimately, these federal workers who have either been furloughed or missed some of their pay are entitled to back pay for the duration of this shutdown. We obviously saw the Trump administration step in temporarily to not only pay TSA workers during this extended partial government shutdown, but also to pay the rest of DHS employees. So obviously the agency now having to play catch up, but it comes at a very critical time because Secretary Markwayne Mullin had warned that the agency was going to run out of funding the first part of this upcoming month of May, that it would no longer be able to pay its employees had funding not been approved. And so at the end of the day, you know, that's really kind of what this comes down to, on top of the fact that you have lawmakers both in the House and Senate that were set to leave again for another recess. So letting this language any further really wasn't an option. What's really remarkable, Lindsay, though, is that as long as it took for this funding to clear, it literally happened in the blink of an eye. This was done by a voice vote, you know, not the typical recorded vote where you see the tally of lawmakers, how many Republicans voted for it, how many Democrats. It was just approved through a simple voice vote. And before you knew it, the Homeland Security Department was funded again.
Thank you so much for that clarification there on the process. I want to ask you about a key deadline tomorrow. Can you explain what this deadline is and what the Defense Secretary says about it?
Well, I assume you're referring to this 60-day notification that the president is required to request congressional approval to continue fighting with respect to the war in Iran. Obviously, lawmakers were notified about this action when it started in early March. Of course, the action started in late February, but either way, we're kind of coming up against that 60-day window. And Secretary Hegseth was on the Hill once again today before the Senate Armed Services Committee. Yesterday, he was before House Armed Services, but he was pressed about this timetable, whether or not the president would be seeking congressional authorization to continue military action in the region. Now, what Secretary Hegseth explained is that he would have to consult or defer to the White House counsel, but he said that his understanding was that that timetable is paused because we are in a ceasefire right now. So again, obviously, I am not a legal expert when it comes to war powers, but that was the exchange that the secretary had with Virginia Senator Tim Kaine. Nonetheless, we did see the Senate take a vote again on a war powers resolution to end hostilities in the region. This is something we have seen Senate Democrats put forth time and again. This measure once again failed, but notable that 2 Republicans did sign on to it, one of whom being Maine Senator Susan Collins, who hasn't previously supported these measures. She made the point that, you know, this 60-day mark is a requirement of the president to notify Congress, not simply a suggestion. Lindsay.
All right, Nikole Killion, thank you. CBS News has learned the true cost of the war with Iran is closer to $50 billion, not 25. That is according to U.S. officials familiar with internal assessments. Now, the $25 billion figure came from a Pentagon official who testified Wednesday on Capitol Hill about the cost of operation dubbed Epic Fury. And we're told that number only covers the cost of munitions used. It doesn't account for damaged or destroyed U.S. military equipment and installations. Meantime, Iran's supreme leader has issued a new warning to the United States amid tensions over the shaky ceasefire between the White House and Tehran. CBS News foreign correspondent Remy Inocencio has more.
And Iran's Ayatollah also said that the future of the Persian Gulf will be a future without America and that foreigners have no place in it. He also appeared to say that Iran would not give up its nuclear program or its control over the Strait of Hormuz, which, of course, is not what President Trump or members of his cabinet like Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, want to hear. I mean, earlier this week, Mr. Rubio said again that Iran's nuclear program does need to be on that negotiating table. The Ayatollah also said that the Iranians are proud. In a statement here, he said the 90 million proud and honorable Iranians regard all of Iran's capacities, particularly here nuclear and missile capabilities, as national assets, and in no shortage of words saying that they will protect this as they are now protecting the country's waters, land, and airspace. And there is also an historical note today because the country, Iran, is marking what's called National Persian Gulf Day. This marks the day a long time ago, back in 1622, when the Persian Empire at the time pushed out Portuguese colonizers trying to take over the Strait of Hormuz. So that's quite poignant in these days because that same body of water now is what the U.S. military is blocking more than 400 years later. As for how this could impact future ceasefire talks, especially as you know, President J.D. Vance did not go to Islamabad for talks over last weekend. The statement here, and also from Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps, it's not a statement that says, let's figure this out. This would appear to be a further hardening of the Iranian line and doesn't even make any mention of negotiations or even of compromise. It's as much a message of unity for the Iranian people, but as it is a pushback against President Trump. Back to you.
Ramy Inocencio, thank you.